Alright, so today I'll be doing a teardown of the Studio 1555. First thing you want to do when you're taking apart any laptop is remove the battery. Okay, and then you can remove this panel here. This panel has 5 screws. One is recessed pretty far, so you'll probably want something like this that's got the longer tip rather than something like this for that screw. And you can go ahead and take this panel off. This is also an opportune time to replace the RAM if you're upgrading, or you can also probably get to the CPU here. We'll find out as we go. This is for the networking cards under here, so it's just 2 screws. Okay, so you can upgrade your wireless card or add stuff. That's up to you. And then the hard drive is here on the side. That'll be these 4 screws. They've got this little cylindrical shape here to let you know that it's for the hard drive. Okay, and then that just comes right out just like that. Okay, so go ahead and get to this step and we'll go to the next one. Alright, so while you're on the underside of the laptop, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go around the edge of the base and we're going to remove these screws. So you'll notice you've got 3 up here, 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 here. Okay, so go ahead and remove those screws. We'll proceed from there. Alright, so once you've removed the screws, and don't forget these 3 here in the middle, once you've removed all the screws, you can go ahead and flip it over. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove the keyboard. To remove the keyboard, you have to remove the bezel on top of it because there are some screws holding the keyboard down right above it. So you just kind of pry out gently like this and work your way across. And you'll feel some plastic tabs release. And just remember that stuff's all plastic, so if you go kind of yanking on it and break the tabs, it's not going to go back together properly. So go ahead and remove that like that and set it up. And then you'll see that there are 2 screws here. Go ahead and remove these. This is a number 1 Phillips head. It's really important on these Dells that you use the proper size screwdriver because the screws, I'm not sure why, but the screws on these are softer than on some of the Lenovo's and Toshibas that I've worked on. It's really easy to strip these out. So use the proper size screwdriver. Okay, and then you'll see this just pulls up like this. Okay, and you see there's a little ribbon cable, very standard. You can just put that, use something, you can probably use your fingernail if you've got some, and pull it up. This will just come out like this. Okay, and then you can just set that aside. Okay, to remove this right here, it's similar, but the mechanism is different to remove this. And let's see if I can get a zoom in here. Alright, so the ribbon cable pushes into this little connector, and on each side there are these 2 brown tabs. You want to push back on these 2 tabs, and that's what's going to release the cable. Okay, just be very careful when you're doing it because if you mess this up, you can't really fix it. So there you go. You've got your piece. That's off. Alright, once you're at this stage, you can go ahead and take these little tabs off. They're just kind of, just wiggle them out. Okay, now as you can see here, we've got a whole bunch of lines that connect to the motherboard that are also connected to the monitor. So what you want to do is just work your way through patiently and take these cables out so that the monitor can be disconnected. Now most of these cables, just like this one, have a little pull tab and you can just pull it out. Okay, this one's also just a standard pull out. Just be gentle because some of these, the connectors are pretty fragile, and if you pull too hard, you can pull them out of their sockets. if at all possible, get one of these picks so that you can pull from the base instead of pulling at the wires, and that's going to minimize your chances of problems down the road. Okay, so this looks like about all we can do from up top here. Just get these things out of the way, and just be careful when you got these cables here, because that means you can't close the LCD all the way. You can flip it over, and what we're going to have on the back here, obviously access to all these other cables. So you can just pull these out, just kind of free them up. Take note of which antennas are connected to your wireless card. So on this one, from right to left, black, gray, white. These just kind of pry up like this. Okay, so you loosen them up on this side, and then you can push them through and pull from the other side. And I'll put those back on later. It's important that you put these back on because that prevents electrical shorts. Okay. Alright, and now we can again gently work these out. Now if you bend these metal tabs as you're taking it out, it's going to be hard to put it back together properly without having weird spaces and stuff, so just be gentle as you go. These also look pretty sharp, so be careful not to yank because it could put some cuts in these wires. Alright, now we've got the wires freed up, and we can start taking this piece off. Alright, so this piece is going to come off relatively easily. Go ahead and take off, there's a screw on each side. And I'm supporting the LCD as I'm doing this so that I don't mess up the threads as I go. So if you leave the weight on there, you can mess them up. Okay, so there we go. We've got the LCD, and we can just set this aside, safe spot. And now we can just work with the base. There's one more screw that you'll need to remove here. Okay, and you can feel that we're relatively free now. There's a connector here, and hopefully you can see this right here. It's very similar to the second one that we took off, in that there are two little pegs on each side, and you can just go ahead and press those in the direction of the cable, and that's going to release it, and then it just pulls out, just like that. And we've got another one underneath. Here, I'll spin this around so you can see. Just another one of the same. Okay. Go ahead and just pull that out. And there we go. Okay, if you'll notice on this one, yours hopefully will look a little bit different, but it looks like somebody dropped this, or maybe somebody took it apart before me and just didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, that's what it is, because there's super glue in there. One of these posts has broken off. I see this on a lot of Dells actually, so I'm not sure if it's a manufacturing thing or what. But what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to spin that stud off, and you're going to need to line it up with this right here. And what I use is some two-stage epoxy to reattach the stud so that the screw can go back in properly. and it's pretty much the best way you can repair it without just getting a new armrest piece. Okay, so now we're here in just a few short minutes. Alright, the goal of me taking this laptop apart actually is I'm going to fix the graphics chip overheated and now it's faulty, so what I'm going to try and do is do a reflow on it. So the next part that I'm going to need to do is take off the DVD drive here, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the motherboard out of this bottom casing. So go ahead and take these last two screws. Okay. Now be careful of this connector. It's going to come out of the back pretty, I mean it's in there, but what you need to do is not yank on this cable, because if you yank on the cable you can damage it. So just try and get your fingernail down in there and pull it apart like that, and then just set this aside. Okay? So here we are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this daughter board here. Okay, this is a socket, just pushes down into this. Okay, and then if you'll notice, we'll see here, see these are from the heatsink on the other side. So you can either take the studs holding the motherboard down out and pull it up from the top, or you can remove these screws from the bottom. And again, this is also a very good time to replace the CPU, even if you're thinking about it. This is an older laptop, so upgrade CPUs are going to be pretty cheap. It's not quite like a desktop where you can just find the right socket. You need the right socket, and you also need the right front side bus speed. The only thing I'd say is that it's not really guaranteed for a new CPU to work. What you'll want to do is you'll want to upgrade the BIOS of your laptop to the latest one, and then attempt this. Probably the best bet, if you're kind of risk adverse for that kind of thing, is what you want to do is go to like the Dell website and then see what the fastest processor that this came with, or that you could upgrade this to. Then that's probably your best bet for upgrading the processors. Okay, so remove those. Okay, what you can do now is you can remove these speakers and the little button panel. And this will require you to take off 2 more ribbon cables. Okay, this left speaker was giving me a little bit of trouble, but all I had to do was pull on it. I'm not sure if that's super glue residue there. I think it was. Yeah, I think there's some sort of super glue residue on here. I don't know who was in this laptop before me, but should have just bought some new speakers. Okay, so once you've got those out, now we've got pretty good access to the heatsink fan and the motherboard. Alright, so at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this heatsink. You'll notice that there are 6 screws here. This is the GPU here, in this area actually. Don't press too hard while you're taking these out. Obviously you don't want to round out the screws, but you also don't want to crack the motherboard. I'm also going to take this opportunity to replace the thermal paste on these pieces. You can get some quality stuff from Amazon for just a couple bucks. And it'll be pretty tenacious on there. So yeah, it looks like somebody replaced this stuff. And this will just come right out. Oh no, it's original. Okay, so you've got that. Now if you want to upgrade your processor, all you have to do is just, see this here, just turn this one, what's that, a quarter turn, and then this will come out. Just be very careful as you're kind of taking it out. It's really in there. I'll take it out later. It's just a quarter turn and it'll come out. Okay, flip it over. Now you've got access to this motherboard here. Take out all the studs that are holding it in, and you can feel that it's kind of loose in here. And it's just going to be kind of a trick of taking it easy to get it in and out. There are 2 more screws here that you can take out. Okay. Alright, so what we're looking at here, there's one little cable over here that you can pull out. Again, you can try and easily pull on the wires, but you kind of want to avoid doing that if possible. Try and get in there with a pick or something. That'll help you get it out. Okay. So we got this piece out. Right underneath my fingers here, there are 2 posts that are just press-in connections for the motherboard. So you can either try and press them out, or you can just try and take the motherboard out as a whole. So you kind of see here that these pieces just come out like that, just like that. Okay. Just going to support it. I can see under here, and then I'm just going to gently press that apart, just like that, and this will come out. Okay, so what we've got here is the motherboard. Let's set this aside. Okay, this is what we were kind of aiming for. If you are doing the same thing as me and you're trying to resurrect a motherboard, you want to get it as bare as possible. So you want to take out all this stuff. Go ahead and take this off. This is the connector for the DVD drive. And then this will have 1 screw on the side here. I just put this rubber So it's actually a coaster, looks like a floppy disk underneath it, so that when you press down to take screws out, it doesn't flex the board too much. Okay, so that just comes off, and now we're going to have to go back to this thing here. Okay, that's your CPU there. This one's got T5550. Yeah, it's pretty middle of the road processor for this era. You'll be able to upgrade it. Off the top of my head, not really sure, maybe a T7600 or something will go in there. But all that information is probably readily available on Google. So anyway, now we've got the motherboard out, and I can start prepping it for the oven.